Hello, beautiful humans. It's another great day to remind you that the LDS Church still has a huge problem covering up SA in the church. Today, we're going to continue talking about floodlit.org's 12-part series reporting on court cases that have been filed against the LDS Church. In late 2004, 13-year-old Michael Jensen, who is pictured here, was arrested in Utah for harming two girls at school. Despite felony charges, he pleaded to misdemeanors, allegedly aided by his grandfather, Blaine Jensen, a senior church official with ties to the church's presidents, who reportedly attended key proceedings that secured a lenient probation and a class teaching appropriateness. Jensen's church bishop was in the courtroom and aware of the charges. In a behavior risk assessment submitted to the court, a psychologist warned that Jensen would reoffend if given the opportunity, but he faced no stricter consequences. After the Jensen family moved to West Virginia in 2005, Jensen's mother frequently arranged for him to babysit for other Mormon families. From 2007 to 2011, Jensen allegedly harmed at least 14 children aged 2 to 12 in Mormon homes. During much of that time, Jensen's mother was a Ward Relief Society president, and his father was a stake high council member. For those of you who aren't members of the LDS Church, that means his mother was in charge of the women's organization, and his father was in charge of several men who would travel around to speak at different wards. Despite an alleged stake high council meeting in 2006 or 2007 about Jensen's behavior, church leaders took no significant action. Multiple bishops allegedly dismissed complaints or denied knowledge, even when confronted by parents. Church officials permitted Jensen to give the sacrament, serve as a bishop's assistant, teach young children in primary, and begin a church mission, despite being kicked out of his family's home for conduct with a 12-year-old sibling, the lawsuit alleged. In 2010, Jensen's parents banned him from their home, allowing him to stay in a tent in their backyard. Another bishop in the stake gave Jensen keys to a church building so he could sleep inside, while allegedly knowing he had been tried out of state for these crimes. Jensen was approved in June of 2011 for a church mission to Arizona and became a full-time missionary later that year. I also want to remind everybody that this platform continues to demonetize my videos when I talk about these types of cases. I don't know if they are trying to protect people who are perpetrating, or if they just don't want this type of content on their platform. But I would hope at least, that this platform would want to spread awareness about these cases and hold perpetrators accountable. So if you would like to donate to my Venmo instead, I would appreciate it. It's at @3_verse. In January 2012, two of Jensen's victims told their mother he had abused them in 2007, and she reported it to the West Virginia State Police. The church sent Jensen home within about a week, but church officials did not report Jensen's behavior to West Virginia authorities as required by law, the complaint said. Instead, a bishop allegedly told stake president Stephen Grow he had called the church's helpline to consult with church officials in Utah about the police investigation. According to the lawsuit, Jensen fabricated a story that he returned early from his mission due to a bicycle accident, and Grow did nothing to correct the fabrication. Jensen's father was deployed when Jensen returned home, and because his mother did not want him living at home without his father there, a stake high council member agreed to let Jensen live with him and his wife, the suit said. Grow allegedly encouraged a Mormon family with young children and a teenage son to allow Jensen to live in their home, saying Jensen was, quote, a good guy, and that he would be, quote, a good role model for their teenager. At the time, stake president Grow was allegedly counseling Jensen on a regular basis. Counseling is in quotes because none of the church leadership at the local level are trained on how to do any kind of counseling, and they certainly aren't licensed. Between May and August of 2012, Jensen lived with that family, and incidents occurred with 3 of the children, aged 6, 9, and 12, according to the suit. In October 2012, Jensen was arrested and charged with 4 separate counts. The charge related to his conduct with 2 young children in November of 2007. In February 2013, after a 2-day jury trial, Jensen was found guilty of 3 of those counts. He was sentenced to 35 to 75 years in prison. That September, 6 families sued the church and local leaders for negligence and conspiracy. After a grueling 5-year legal process that reached the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, a $32 million settlement released the defendants from all claims. 12,000 pages of documents were sealed. In 2021, the church sued 2 insurance companies who refused to reimburse its defense and settlement costs in the West Virginia case. The church's law firm, Curtin McConkie, said, quote, "Public disclosure of the settlement amounts or terms would cause severe and irreparable harm to the church and its financial interests." Let that sink in for just a second. It's very clear that the church's concern is not with the victims or the families. It is with its own reputation and financial interests. In seeking reimbursement for all payouts beyond a $15 million self-insured limit, the church cited at least 378 settlement payments it made for these types of cases or other injuries that allegedly occurred from 2006 to 2012. So let's think about that number for just a second. Every time I do one of these videos, I get faithful Mormons who come and comment and tell me that this is not a rampant problem in the church and that there are a limited number of cases. There were 378 settlement payments for cases between 2006 and 2012. That's only 6 years worth of cases. That is 63 settlements a year over the course of 6 years. So if we give the church a wide berth of benefit of doubt and just count cases from 2006 until today, over the course of 20 years, that means if those numbers track and haven't increased, that's 1,260 cases. Now, these are just the cases that the church paid out on. I imagine the number of actual cases is much, much higher than that. Now, in suing the insurance companies, the church stood to get up to about $90 million from the 2 insurers, 27 plus million in defense costs from each of the cases, and nearly $36 million in combined settlement reimbursements. The result of that litigation remains unclear. The docket hasn't been updated since August 2023, when there was a ruling to seal a hearing set to address the motions for summary judgment. Now, the LDS Church has never published a list of known offenders in its ranks, nor have they instituted basic background checks for people who work with children. And as far as I can tell, the only moves that they have made to change anything about their current policies are that about 5 years ago, they required to have 2 teachers in a classroom when there were children present, and a previous case forced them to put windows on all of the classroom doors. Other things that they could do are to eliminate the requirement for leaders to call the helpline, which is staffed by attorneys, and instead instruct leaders to call 911 or to report the cases to CPS. While many states do have mandated reporting laws in place for people who work for or with churches, even as volunteers, there are many states, including my own state of Texas, which have no laws that make clergy mandated reporters. If you live in a state where that's the case, please write your legislators, because that is the best way to protect children, is to make everyone that works with children a mandated reporter. The church could do this of their own volition, but they don't. And I've said this before, it's clear where their priorities are. They're with protecting their financial interest and their reputation. And every single time a case gets won or settled, it opens them up to more potential lawsuits because the precedents are being set. For anyone who cares deeply about this situation, as I do, if you want to protect more children, there are many resources out there. One that I highly recommend is the Architecture of Abuse podcast that talks about the systemic problems in the LDS Church that lead to these types of cases. And of course, I'm always going to advocate for floodlit.org. They do amazing work. And since their launch in 2022, they've documented over 4,000 reports within the church, including nearly $51 million in settlements in 15 cases. 11 other cases involve secret settlement amounts. In 2024, Floodlit broke the story when roughly 100 survivors filed lawsuits against the LDS Church in California. Nearly all of those are still ongoing. And you can donate to support floodlit.org's investigative reporting and their mission by contacting them on their website at floodlit.org/donate. As always, I'm going to advocate for calling 911 because SA of children is not a sin, it's a crime.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.